Hello and welcome to another Paula Armstrong ceramics. So for this video I thought I would make a little fairy, something that's a little bit more advanced, so it's not a very simple beginner's build, but it's a great one to stretch yourself and have a go at something a bit different. So I'm going to start off with a simple pinch pot, as I'm going to make a little flower bud as the seat for my fairy to be sitting on. So as usual with the pinch pots, I'm starting with a ball of clay. I'm going to cut it in half, pinch the shape out, and then make a hollow sphere. Okay, so now that we have our hollow sphere made up, we're now going to add in some leaf shapes on the bottom of our bud. Now I've added in 3 leaves because I quite like odd numbers and I think it's going to look nice, but it's up to you how many you want to do. It's just a case of pressing in with the knife so that the leaf is slightly raised from the bud petal area, and then marking in the veins on the leaves. Okay, so that's our flower bud all finished off, so now it's time to get started on the fairy. So I'm just going to start with a small ball for the head and a little sausage for a neck, and then attach the two together, making sure they're well joined, because there's going to be a fair amount of weight on that little ball once I start adding the hair later on. And once it's together, I then start working on the face. Now the face is very fiddly, and I used a combination of tools and my nails to put in the features, but it is a case of taking your time and working at it until it is the way you want it. Now once the face is all finished, we're then on to the torso. And for this, I'm literally just taking a piece of clay and moulding it to the shape of the torso. I will be adding the bust later on as an addition. So for my fairy, I'm keeping the limbs really simple, and all I'm doing is rolling out some coils with one end thinner than the other, so it gets a little bit pointy. I'm doing this for the arms and the legs, but with the arms I'm going to add some hands to the end of them, which are simple balls of clay that I've pressed the end of my knife into and then turned into a bit of a teardrop shape before attaching them to the thin end of the arm coils. So when attaching your arms, think about the shape of the shoulders, making sure that when you add the coil onto the torso that you have a shape that looks like shoulders rather than it looking like some sausages stuck on the side of the torso. Okay, so next up I'm going to roll out a slab of clay that I'm going to turn into the skirt for my fairy. I'm going to make a petal skirt for my fairy, but I need to do this and get the skirt in place before I attach the legs. So I'm going to just cut the skirt base into petal shapes and then form it to give a bit of detail using the side of my knife. Okay, so next up I'm going to attach the bottom of the torso to the skirt before I then attach the legs to the torso. Once the legs are attached, I will then wrap the skirt around the legs and blend the skirt into the torso so that it looks like a dress. Once everything is blended together, I then gently pull the bottom corners of the petals out to give a slightly flared shape and something a bit more movement and natural to the skirt. Then it's a case of attaching it to the flower bud that we made earlier, and then bending the legs so that it sits comfortably on the bud. Remember to bend at the knees and try not to curve the legs. For the hair, I'm literally just rolling out some very rough pieces of clay and attaching little pointy and coily bits to the head and very roughly blending them in so that I'm using that texture, that rough texture, to look like hair. Next up is the wings. Now for the wings, I'm just flattening two pieces of clay to make some slabs, and then I'm using the flat side of my knife to go over the surface and stretch the clay and mark in the lines, a bit like feathers, onto the clay shape. It stretches the clay out, which gives nice rough thin edges, which you can then just pull off the very tips to shape the wings and get them about the same shape. When you start, it is a good idea to start with two pieces the same size, but do remember that the wings are going to be going in different directions, so the front is going to be the opposite on each side. As both sides of the wings will be seen, we need to add some texture to the reverse of the wings, but this needs to be done very lightly so that we don't get rid of the texture that we've already got on the other side. Now we're going to attach the wings one at a time, scoring and slipping onto the back of our fairy. But when I attached them, what I found was it was easier to have a slight curve in the wing, as that would help the wing hold itself up rather than having one wing really big, wide and flat. So when I attached it, I kind of pinched the wing at the back so that it would fold slightly as it came away from the body. I cut away a bit of the excess clay from the wing, particularly the first one, but also a bit off the second, so that there wasn't something too heavy and bulky on the back of the fairy. And then I blend everything together and tidy up the back so that it looks like the back of a fairy rather than it looking like the wings have been stuck on the back. And here she is, all finished, our fairy sitting on the flower bed, enjoying the sunshine. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon.